good afternoon, good evening. Glad to see you back to another episode of It's Naturally Nat. Today we're going to make something that I actually debated with Daniel and even my mom about whether I should have a video on this topic. And the topic and what we're going to make for today is meatloaf. Okay? I've made hundreds and hundreds of meatloafs in my life, and I agree they smell so good. They're not my favorite food. I make them for other people. Maybe this is because I grew up making my family meatloaf because I'm the oldest of my family, and that was a job Mom delegated to me a long time ago. In fact, I asked her, I said, why did you always have me make meatloaf when we were growing up? Mom said, I liked your version better. I was like, okay. I just used to think she just said that because that made me want to make it. But she swears that that's true. And then I thought, yeah, I am going to do an episode on meatloaf today because there are so many different ways to make it. And I used to just take for granted everybody makes them the same way, and that is not true. Okay? I have made turkey meatloaf, a pork mixture meatloaf, buffalo meatloaf, beef meatloaf, and venison meatloaf over and throughout the years in my past, and sometimes mixtures of those things. Today, I'm going to make a strictly venison meatloaf, but feel free to make my meatloaf with any kind of meat that you want to use. You don't have to use venison from a friend of yours. If you have a friend that is a hunter and you've got some and you don't want to use it for that, that's fine. You can use any kind of meat. You can use the 80-20 ground hamburger that you get at the store, and that works fine. Just know that the higher the fat content, like that, you'll just want to remember not to add in anything like bacon, because otherwise you're going to get a lot of fat in the bottom of your dish that you cook it in. Now today, making, I almost said bison, venison meatloaf, what we have to remember with venison or bison as well, and turkey for that matter, if you're making a meatloaf with those three different kinds of meat, you should have some sort of fat either in it or on it, because those are lean meats and they dry out quickly. Okay? So what I have here, of course, is, and this is roughly about a pound and a half of ground venison. This is from a friend, and this doesn't have anything ground into it, but you can see there is a little bit of fat on this particular venison, about a pound and a half, like I said. You're also going to need today some sort of carb mix-in, okay? We're going to make, and I believe the traditional word is a panade, I think that's what it's called, but to mix into our meat. And to do that, and I've used many different kinds of things to make it, I just got one end of some kind of good quality whole wheat bread. I used the end piece because nobody ever eats that in our house, so I went ahead and tore that up. Okay, it's a little stale, and that's exactly what you want. One piece of this torn up bread. You're going to need an egg. You're going to need a little bit of milk. I don't have a specific recipe for this, so sorry about not giving you exact measurements, but a little bit of milk, and by a little bit I mean 1/4 to 1/3 of a cup. Okay, you're going to need some bacon. You're going to need Worcestershire sauce, pepper, garlic powder or fresh garlic, the sauce, which I'll talk about that in a minute, and some ketchup, okay, which we have right here. So what we're going to do first, and you want to make sure your hands are clean, is use your hands, okay? One of the reasons why you want to, oh, my apron's coming down. One of the reasons you want to make meatloaf with your hands is because you don't want to overmix, and if you use a spoon, you may overmix, but you can be lighter with your hands if you use your hands, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to start off right away by adding the bread mixture. Now I've also used, if I didn't have any bread in the house, I've also used about 1/4 of a cup of oats. That works, like oatmeal oats is what I'm talking about. I've also used about 1/4 to 1/3 of a cup of crunched up saltine crackers. That works really well because that also adds a little salt into the meat. But we're going to make our panade, I think that's what you call it, first with our meat. Okay, so we'll dump our breadcrumbs in there, and then we're going to go ahead and add our egg. not beating it beforehand. I'm going to do it with my hands, believe it or not. Got a little bit of just a micro piece of shell in there, but I have that removed now. So we're looking like this. We're going to add our milk. I can't recommend getting these if you find these on sale at your store. I think they're supposed to be for little kids because they have straws. But if you're not a big milk drinker, these are so handy to have in your pantry because they don't last long. You don't have to worry about your milk going bad. Okay? So I'm going to say add, again, I do this all by eye. You know, I don't know, that's a couple tablespoons maybe of milk. And the milk and the egg, you don't want to quite mix it in first to the meatloaf. And sometimes I just go by feel. I think I added just a teensy bit of, a teensy bit too much, a little bit of milk to that right there. I don't know, we'll see. Rinse my hand off. I might throw in some oats. I might throw in a few crackers. In fact, I got the crackers handy, so I'm going to bring these over here. We'll see. We'll see if I add a few crackers crunched up into this. We'll see how it feels. And then our seasonings, of course, garlic powder, salt and pepper, and Worcestershire, which I'm going to add right now. And you just kind of guess. I would say this is probably, I like a lot of garlic powder. This is probably a half a teaspoon. I put this in a lot of savory dishes. I'm going to say about roughly a couple shakes, about that much, right? What would that be? Maybe a half a teaspoon. Pepper, I go heavy on the pepper. Everything seems to feel half a teaspoonish. And then some, I'm going to use kosher salt. About that much, okay? And this is a couple squirts, if you will, of ketchup, not a lot. Okay, so you're wondering, what about these two things? Where do these come in? I'll talk about that in a minute, I won't forget. But I'm gonna gently, you don't ever want to overmix any kind of ground meat, because it will get, whether you're making patties or a meatloaf, it will get kind of a funky texture, like too compacted and too dry and hard, if you will. So you want to be kind of gentle when you're mixing this in, which is what I'm doing right now. And this is going to sound a little bit nutty, but I go by smell, even though this is raw. Sometimes I just can tell by smell if I want more, and I'm being gentle with it, if I want more seasonings, I can just somehow tell. I forgot to mention earlier, you'll want some chopped up, pretty small pieces. I would say small chopped onion. This is a very small onion. It was about the size of a ping pong ball that I had in my onion drawer. I mix that. And I'm going to go ahead and show you here. And you kind of got to hear it. Can you hear it too? It's very moist. Kind of liquidy. This is where you make the judgment call. Do I want to add any more breadcrumbs? Do I want to add in any more crunched up crackers? Or do I want to add in a little bit of oat? Because you don't want this too liquidy or it won't hold its form. Okay? A good meatloaf will hold its form. Adding too much of those breadcrumbs or those crackers or those breadcrumbs, crackers, or panko or oats will make your meatloaf too dense, and you don't want that either. You want it to be lofty and light, if that makes sense. I can kind of tell by how this is holding up when I kind of try to make it go into a loaf shape, and it's kind of wanting to stay that way, right? If you were making my meatloaf version and it wasn't wanting to kind of stay together like that, then you'd want to go ahead and add 2 tablespoons at a time of the crunched up crackers or the oats or the breadcrumbs until it wants to kind of stand on its own a little bit. And I can tell I'm already there. I'm going to give it another smell. And I think I'm good. I'm not going to over season this. I'm going to go ahead and now put it into Since I'm using roughly a pound and a half of venison, ground venison, this 8x8 Pyrex pan is really a good shape for that. This meatloaf will feed, depending on your appetites, 2 to 4 people, okay? If Daniel's around, Daniel's not around today, or if BM's around, that's going to go pretty fast, right? Because they like to have multiple pieces of meatloaf, so it doesn't last long. But if you have plenty of side dishes, you know, this could feed 4 people if you're not being piggy-wiggy about the whole thing. And I'm glad I went with the judgment of not adding in any more of the panade, the filler, the dry part anyway, because it's holding up really nicely. Now I could put it in the oven and bake it just like that. You can see I kind of shaped it like a football. But I'm not gonna, because I'm gonna elevate this meatloaf, because this is the only way I make meatloaf, is I always, no matter what kind of ground meat I'm using, I elevate it the following way, okay? And that is, especially if I'm making a buffalo meatloaf or venison, I want to go ahead and put bacon on top. Why? Well, it's bacon, it tastes good. The bacon offers fat, and then since the meat's lean, it helps kind of seal in the meat's natural juices so you don't end up with an overly dry meatloaf. So 2 pieces. I want to teach you a little handy trick you might not know about when it comes to bacon, okay? I just pulled these 2 pieces out of this bag that I have frozen. How I store bacon is I take bacon individually in pieces, roll them up into a, like this, roll them up, and freeze them, okay? Why? They're super easy to take out, they thaw instantly, and you don't have bacon going bad in your crisper. You don't want to have bacon that's 6 months old raw in your crisper. That's a no-go. So I just want to share that little tip with you. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the freezer. Now again, you could probably just bake him just like that, but one step further is my meatloaf topping that I like. That kind of seals in everything, keeps the bacon juices going into the meat. Just wonderful. And that's this, which is about, I would say, 1/3 cup of ketchup, a squirt of yellow mustard, just a squirt. We're talking like a half a teaspoon, a little bit of brown sugar, and I'm going to say like maybe a tablespoon. And you need the brown sugar to caramelize with the sugar that's in the ketchup, because that gives it a really good flavor. And then just literally a squirt of your Worcestershire. Okay, and I haven't mixed this yet. I wanted you to see all those ingredients here. And this just, I'm going to give my hands a quick rinsey. I get to talking and I forget the rinsing, right? And that's pretty important. You want to remember to do that whenever you're handling with raw meat. I'll go ahead and wipe my drawer off where I touched it briefly. This topping, if you will, sends it over the top. And I've seen people just put plain ketchup on top, and you could do that, but I don't like that. I don't think it tastes very good. This is really good. I'm going to give it a little taste. The brown sugar is key. I might put in a little black pepper. And then stick my pinky in for a second. That's where it's at. Pour that over the top of your meatloaf. Spread it over evenly. If you have a little bit more on top than you do on the sides, that's fine, because it's going to run down the sides while it's cooking. Okay? Now, depending at your elevation, you'll cook it roughly 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how done you like it. I don't like mine overdone, but when I make it for BM, he for some reason likes his a little on the overdone side. Again, I don't. Not that I eat a lot of meatloaf, but I don't like mine overdone. So 350 degrees, that's what this looks like. It smells good, even though it's not baked yet. 350 degrees, 45 minutes to an hour. Check it at 45 or 50. I don't think I ever go quite an hour, even though I'm at a high elevation. Put it in the middle rack of your oven. And when you get done and take it out, let it cool, and boy, will it be delicious. And I will share that with you later once it's done cooking after I set the oven timer. Be back in a minute. Well, and now we're back. I went and I checked the meatloaf when the buzzer went off, and I cooked it about 47 to almost 50 minutes. And then I took my, if you don't have one of these, I recommend this, especially if you're just starting off cooking, a probe thermometer for cooking meat. And it was where it was supposed to be, temperature-wise. I think it was even a little higher than it need be. It was a little over 165. But I knew one of the people I was cooking this for likes his meatloaf top to be a little burned. And like I said earlier in this video, I don't like that because it dries it out. So I saved the pan, and I want to show you how much fat came out of this, if you can see. It's not a lot of fat, but it is some, and it comes from the bacon, not from the buffalo, or excuse me, the venison. Although if you were using buffalo, you wouldn't have a lot of fat either. This is just from the bacon. And here's what the final dish looks like, and it smells so good. And you're probably wondering, oh, did you overcook it a little bit? Nope. To fool my person who likes their meat a little burned, which I don't like it burned, the last 3 minutes, I put it up in the broil function, right under, I moved the rack in the oven, right under the broiler, and I broil it for like 2-3 minutes. And it gets that char that he likes on the top and makes the bacon a little more, have more bite, I guess you would say, to the tooth. Gets the bacon a little more done, and it smells wonderful. That combined with some good green beans and butter and some stuffing that I whipped up, and you got yourself a really good meal. So go ahead, get that pound and a half of buffalo or buffalo or bison or venison or that 80-20 burger or the ground turkey, and make a meatloaf. Make it my style. Make that topping. Put bacon on the top, and make it for yourself or for your friends or your family, and let me know what you think of it in the comments. Otherwise, like and subscribe. Hope you're having a great day wherever you're at, wherever you're from, and I'll see you next time.